Good evening, everybody. I'm Tony Porter. I'm with an organization named Call to Men, and I was asked by my good friend Troy Vincent, who's being honored here tonight, to accept the Solidarity Award on his behalf. Troy is ill, had an ailment that put him down for about a week or so, but he's a good guy and got nothing but love for him, so I'm glad to be here on his behalf. I'd also like to thank all the staff here at Vital Voices, our global partnership, for the exceptional work that they do, as well as their decision to honor my friend Troy. Also like to congratulate all of the honorees, Mark Pritchard, Alex Prout, Dr. Kuyati, who just grabbed my heart right out of my chest. I'm sure the same for you all as well. There's a lot I could tell you about my friend Troy Vincent. Most he wouldn't find important at all, or wouldn't want me to say. You have his bio in front of you, so there's a lot of stuff in there. I mean, I could tell you he was the 7th overall pick in the 1992 NFL draft. I could tell you he played pro football. He was a cornerback for about 15 years, which, and if you're a football fan, that's a big deal. I mean, they say in football it takes about 3 years to feel like you made it, 5 years you're a veteran, 8 years you're done. But for Troy, he wouldn't find that important at all for me to share with you. I can tell you that he was a team captain for 13 of his 15-year career, that he was in 5 Pro Bowls, that he was named All-Pro 3 times, that he was inducted to the Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame. But he wouldn't find none of that important. He was sitting here, he'd probably be getting upset with me about right now. And you can see in his bio that he's a recipient of many prestigious awards, and several of them about character, which is some real cool stuff. But it's not what he would really want to talk about this evening. He probably wouldn't even mention that he's the vice president of football operations at the league office here, meaning that he's just a few positions below the commissioner. Truth of the matter is, the only thing that Troy would want me to talk about is that he's a staunch, unwavering advocate to ending all forms of violence against all women and girls. And that word all is real important. Dr. Kuyate was just sharing about those twins. We don't see those twins until we say all. When we say ending violence against women and girls, we think we mean all women and girls, but when we say all women and girls, that's when we see those twins. And that's Troy. He's a man who's very intentional about using his influence and platform to ending all forms of violence against all women and girls. And I really want to lift up the honorees, the men, for doing such that, using their influence and platform. I want to lift up many of my brothers here in the room, former honorees of this great organization, many of which I know for many, many years, and give testimony to how they continue to use their influence and platform to ending all forms of violence against all women and girls. Troy understands that violence against women and girls is at epidemic proportions, whether here in the U.S. or abroad, is one of the leading causes of injury to women. He also understands that, most men are not abusive, right? So if my outstretched arm represented most men, and even if I stayed here in the U.S., but I could be speaking of abroad as well, if my outstretched arms, represented most men, they say it's about that many men who are abusive. And then there's all the rest of us. I'm going to be comfortable in my assumption tonight that the men in this room represent this group. The question Troy would want me to ask you is, how is it that this many men do what they do to women in the presence of all of us good men? I think it's a fair question. Now, in the presence doesn't mean that we were there when it happened. But in the presence means one of two things. We're aware that it's happening, and we're silent. Or we're not aware that it's happening, and we're ignorant to the fact. Neither of those things are good for us. You know, and I am like, as I've heard so many other folks that's come to this podium, I'm really honored to be in the presence of so many men here tonight. I'm sure amongst this gathering, if we were going to just call this a critical mass of men, there's a tremendous amount of influence and platform, influence that can lend to a platform in this space here tonight. So it's fair for us as men to ask ourselves, you know, how does that happen, right? How does that happen? I mean, we're men who would never harm women, right? We would never harm women, but we really have to ask ourselves, you know, how does that happen and where are we at? I've heard this mentioned also tonight. Are we part of the problem or are we part of the solution? It's a fair question for us to ask. And women have told me over the years, you know, Tony, if women could end the violence on their own, we would have already, right? And we can't count on these men over here, but we're not tossing them out in the garbage because the truth be told, some of them are our men that we love and care about. But we can't count on them. But if we're going to call this an equation, who's left from this is us. And women have told me that women cannot end the violence on their own, that men have to be part of the solution. We know that. We know that tonight. We've been knowing that for a while, and as mentioned, the Me Too movement has helped to really lift us up in this space. So we're here tonight to encourage we as a critical mass of men to develop a voice to begin to speak to these issues. Find our place at the table. There's a place for all of us at the table. We're also the first generation of men truly being asked to speak to these issues. So for many of us, it's new. We don't really know what to say or how to say it. Well, we got to fly this plane while we're building it. We can't sit around and wait until we figure this thing out and get it down to a perfection. While we're doing that, women are being killed. As we say, it's at epidemic proportions. So we got to get involved, we got to get involved now. And so lastly, with all that being said and how my friend Troy, who I love dearly, puts himself out on the lines, uses his influence and platform on a daily basis to make these things happen. And lastly, I guess what I'll say about Troy, that, you know, Troy is a man with very humble beginning, grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. Troy is Alma's baby boy. That's his mother. He's a devoted husband to Tommy. He's a father of 5 wonderful people. He's a man of faith with nothing but love for community and people. He's a man that's invested in giving and using all his God-given talents, resources, and treasures for the betterment of humanity. And that's what we're talking about today, folks. We're not just talking about ending violence against women and girls. We're about humanity. The same notions and rigid notions of violence that have supported an epidemic of violence against women and girls, it's killing men too. It's killing us too. All of our humanity is on the table. And if there's ever been a time in many of our lifetimes, particularly the younger folks in the room, my favorite new word is intentional. We don't have time to play. It's time to be intentional. Thank you all, and thank you for honoring my friend, Troy Vincent.